ASMR. Tonight, our journey takes us to a city overwhelmed by disease. Its streets, once filled with merchants, craftsmen, and families, now echo with silence. The air is heavy with uncertainty. Doors remain locked. Shutters stay closed. The sound of distant bells marks another life lost, and somewhere hidden beneath the cobblestone streets, rats continue to multiply. As we explore the history behind the world's most infamous plagues, you'll be watching gameplay from Dishonored 2. Although its rat plague is fictional, its inspiration comes from real history. Tonight we'll discover how disease changed entire civilizations, who the plague doctors really were, and why their haunting beaked masks continue to fascinate us centuries later. So find a comfortable place, relax, and let's begin. Before the plague, Europe was changing. Cities grew larger. Trade routes connected kingdoms across continents. Markets overflowed with goods from distant lands. Ships arrived daily, bringing silk, spices, wine, and precious metals. With prosperity came crowded neighborhoods, narrow streets, poor sanitation, open sewers, and countless black rats living along the growing population. Few people realized these conditions would soon create the perfect environment for disaster. Around the middle of the 14th century, a deadly disease began its journey across Europe. Modern historians believe the illness was caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, as I butchered the pronunciation. The bacteria spread primarily through fleas that often lived on rodents. As merchant ships traveled between ports, they unknowingly carried infected rats and fleas with them. From city to city, from kingdom to kingdom, within only a few years, millions had become ill. Communities that once thrived were transformed overnight. Imagine awakening to find that your neighbor has disappeared. The bakery never opens. The blacksmith is gone. Church bells ring throughout the day. Markets grow empty. Travel becomes dangerous. Families remain indoors. Fear spreads almost as quickly as disease itself. Without modern medicine, people searched for explanations. Some believed bad air was responsible. Others looked to the stars. Many believed it was a punishment from God. Few understood how disease actually spread. Perhaps no image is more recognizable than the plague doctors. Dressed in long dark robes, leather gloves, a wide-brimmed hat, and most famously, the long bird-like beaked mask. Today the mask has become a symbol of mystery and horror. But its original purpose was practical. Doctors believed illness traveled through poisonous air. Inside the hollow beak, they placed lavender, rose petals, mint, juniper, and dozens of aromatic herbs. They hoped their pleasant scents would purify the air they breathed. Today, we know those herbs could not stop bacterial infection. Yet, for centuries, people believed they offered protection. The mask was designed with glass lenses to protect the doctor's eyes. Its leather covered nearly every part of the body. wax coats help prevent fluids from soaking into clothing. Many doctors carried a wooden cane, not as a weapon, but to examine patients without touching them directly. To those living during the plague, the arrival of a masked doctor often meant one thing: disease has reached their neighborhood. Despite their appearance, plague doctors were not miracle workers. Most had little understanding of bacteria or viruses. Many treatments proved ineffective. Some recommended bloodletting. Others prescribed strange mixtures of herbs or minerals. Yet they served an important role. They documented the sick, recorded deaths, witnessed the spread of disease. They remained with patients when many others had already fled. In many ways, their courage has been overshadowed by the appearance of the famous mask. The world of Dishonored draws inspiration from many historical events. Its cities filled with quarantine zones, overrun by rats, guard patrols, fear, political instability, and masked officials echo real moments from history. Although the rat plague within the game is fictional, its atmosphere captures many of the emotions people experienced during history's greatest epidemics. Tonight we discovered how the Black Death changed the course of history, how the mysterious plague doctors became one of medicine's most recognizable symbols, and how those real events inspired the haunting world of Dishonored. More than 300 years after the Black Death, another plague would strike one of Europe's greatest cities, London. In 1665, the disease returned once again. Entire neighborhoods were placed under quarantine. Doors of infected homes were painted with a red cross. Beneath it, workers wrote the words, "Lord, have mercy upon us." Families could not leave. Guards stood watch. Outside, day and night, food was delivered to doorsteps. Fear spread through every street. The city continued to function, but only barely. Many who could afford to leave escaped into the countryside. Others had nowhere to go. They remained hoping they would survive. For centuries, people believed rats were entirely to blame for the plague. The truth is slightly more complicated. The true culprit was often the flea, tiny parasites fed upon infected animals. When their host died, they searched for another. Sometimes that new host was human. As trade ships traveled between ports, they unknowingly transported both rats and infected fleas. One voyage could spread the disease to an entirely new city. Today, scientists continue to study exactly how different outbreaks spread. Yet, there is little doubt that poor sanitation, crowded living conditions, and limited medical knowledge allowed the plague to flourish. One of the most important ideas to emerge from these outbreaks was quarantine. The word comes from the Italian quarantagiorni, definitely mispronounced that as well, meaning 40 days. Ships arriving from regions experiencing disease were required to wait before their passengers could disembark. Officials hoped that any illness would reveal itself before entering the city. Although medical science was still developing this practice, it saved countless lives. Even today, the principle of limiting exposure remains one of public health's most valuable tools. As centuries passed, medicine began to change. Scientists developed microscopes. Researchers identified bacteria. Doctors learned how disease actually spread. New discoveries slowly replaced old beliefs about bad air and mysterious vapors. The famous beaked mask eventually disappeared from hospitals, but its image never vanished. Instead, it became one of history's most recognizable symbols. Today, the plague doctor's mask appears almost everywhere. Books, films, Halloween costumes, works of art, comic books, and video games. Its long beak and dark robes create an unmistakable silhouette. For many, it represents mystery. For others, fear. Yet behind the frightening appearance stood real physicians attempting to help their communities during one of history's darkest chapters. Their methods were imperfect, but many risked their own lives while caring for strangers. The world of Dishonored borrowed many elements from this history. Its fictional rat plague is not a recreation of the Black Death. Rather, it is a dramatic interpretation. The endless swarms of rats, the quarantine districts, the political unrest, the fear that spreads faster than truth. These elements echo real events that shaped Europe centuries ago. Throughout the series, the plague becomes more than a disease. It reveals how societies respond when everything begins to fall apart. Some people choose compassion, others seek power, and many simply try to survive. Although centuries have passed, the history of plague continues to teach us an important lesson. Or really important lessons: clean water, sanitation, scientific research, medical cooperation, and honest communication. History reminds us that fear can spread almost as quickly as disease, but so can courage, kindness, and hope. Perhaps that is why the plague doctor continues to fascinate us, not simply because of the mask or the mysterious appearance, but because it represents humanity's constant struggle to understand the unknown. Every generation faces its own challenges, its own fears, its own questions, and every generation depends upon those willing to seek answers. The plague doctors were part of that journey. Not perfect, not all-knowing, but determined to help during an age when so much remained a mystery. And that brings us to the end of tonight's little journey through the rat plague, the Black Death, and the mysterious world of the plague doctors. From crowded medieval cities to the quarantine districts of London, from the famous beaked masks to the fictional streets of Dishonored 2, we've explored how history and imagination often walk side by side. While the rat plague of Dishonored exists only in fiction, its atmosphere draws inspiration from real events that changed the course of human history. Perhaps that is why the game feels so believable, not because of magic or supernatural powers, but because its world reflects our own past. Thank you for spending part of your evening with me here at Pixels and Playbooks ASMR. If you enjoy relaxing stories about history, video games, movies, and other forgotten stories, please consider subscribing for more peaceful journeys. I'd love to know what historical period or mysterious topic you'd like to explore next. Until next time, take care, stay curious, stay kind, and remember, sometimes the most fascinating stories are the ones history already wrote. Have a great night.